there's a few things, not many, not all, but there's a few things this present administration is not being honest about. And we have to call it like we see it. You know, there's this effort, this concerted effort to eradicate DEI, as we all know. And one of the things is you've seen me, Molly, talking about politics. This subject intertwines politics and sports. So if we want to go there, let's go there. You know, they want to eradicate DEI programs and what have you. And what I've said to folks, particularly on the side of the GOP, is very, very simple. It's not so much that you want to eradicate DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. I'll let somebody else argue on behalf of that. What I like to focus on is, how dare you try to ignore the reason for its existence in the first place? Similar to civil rights legislation in 1964, similar to things like affirmative action, similar to things like the Rooney Rule in the National Football League, etc. How dare you try to get away with highlighting why it needed to exist in the first place? It was because of the iniquities of folks in the United States of America, primarily the white power structure that exists. It is a fact. It is known throughout history that it is a fact. They want to gloss over and erase the need for those things to take place to begin with. We were talking about the National Football League feeling compelled to insert a rule that mandated minorities actually get interviewed for jobs because they weren't getting interviewed for jobs. And so now you see a movement clearly provoked by a lot of folks on the side of the GOP, and clearly this administration has bought into it hook, line, and sinker, where a concerted effort is being made to scrub history. We saw Governor DeSantis in Florida allude to this during his campaign, where he literally tried to bring up there were good components about slavery. This is some utterly ridiculous stuff. I don't give a damn what you think you can find for it. When it involves rape, murder, mutilization, and other things like that, how dare you even try to find something positive about such heinous acts and actions that have taken place in this country's history? And so now we have an administration in place that has seemed to go on about the business of trying to scrub history to the point where you have Jackie Robinson, who integrated Major League Baseball, who served in the United States military and departed with honor. Okay, he was not dishonorably discharged. He was honorably discharged. This is an individual, Molly, I'm reading from here right now, where we're talking about a guy that joined the 761st Tank Battalion, known as the Black Panthers, drafted into military service in 1942, was court-martialed in July of 1944 after refusing an order by a driver to move to the back of an Army bus he had boarded. Yet and still, we see on the website for the Pentagon yesterday, page not found for a vast majority of the day before it was reinstated. And nobody is calling out the president, Donald Trump. I will. And I'm not going to call him names and all of this stuff like stupid folks on the left doing, engaging in incendiary rhetoric. It's unnecessary, it's immature, and it's uncalled for. He's the president of the United States. Treat him with the respect that he deserves, but in the same breath, call him to the carpet for stuff that he's doing. This is the same Donald Trump that looked at folks during the campaign in 2015 and 2024. And he said, what do you got to lose? Okay, well, guess what? He won the popular vote. He won the electoral college vote. He won every swing state, okay? And in the process, his numbers improved from 2020 to 2024 with young blacks, young Hispanics, okay, and young voters, with blacks, Hispanics, and young voters overall. You're forgetting about those people now that you're in office, President Trump? They don't matter now? History doesn't matter? The iniquities of this country didn't matter? The insidious behavior and actions from an historical perspective, oh, we want to ignore all of that? It doesn't go down like that. You know, many people on the left And I'm disgusted with them and what they've done. They lost this election, okay? And they have nobody but themselves to blame because they prioritized things they didn't need to prioritize. But even in the midst of saying all of that, one has to acknowledge that when you look at the actions of this administration and you're talking about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you're equating that with black people, and you're using words like unqualified. Remember, he blamed DEI when a plane crashed, in the immediate aftermath of the plane crash in D.C., colliding with the helicopter, where lives were lost. The first words that came out of President Trump's mouth was DEI. What evidence do you have, President Trump? He had none. Admitted he had none, but still lent itself to DEI. Pete Hegseth is the head of the Defense Department. He has served our country with honor. I am not trying to knock him or denigrate him in any way. We got to root for our elected politicians or the people that they assign to departments and wish them nothing but the best in America's best interest. But the fact of the matter is, how is he not DEI? He was a soldier. And then he was a host on Fox News on the weekends. And he goes from that to being the head of a Defense Department that oversees more than 3.5 million people. How in the hell do you go from being a weekend host to being the head of over 3.5 million people for the Defense Department of the United States? He happens to be white. And we don't mention DEI when it comes to him. Why not? The biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action and DEI, some would argue, are white women. How come we don't mention that? Why is it always attached to black people? This is the kind of stuff that we're asking ourselves. And on a day like today, it gives us more credence to ask that question because of what happened with Jackie Robinson, who served in our military, drafted, served our country, and for hours upon hours in a day, his stuff was scrubbed. And we're supposed to believe that's accidental. We were born at night, Molly, some of us anyway. Not last night.
I'm sure you'll have last night. I'm sure you'll have more on this on your show, on the Stephen A. Smith Show, and we'll delve into it deeper. Here's what I do know. Jackie Robinson served as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army during World War II, and of course broke Major League Baseball's color barrier in 1947 when he debuted for the Brooklyn Dodgers. We'll leave it there.
Molly,
coming up. Yep.
I want to say one more thing.
Sure.
President Trump, I'm happy to sit down with you to have that conversation, sir. I'd love for you to try to defend it. Vice President Vance, you too. Pete Hegseth, you too. Stephen A. Smith is calling you out on national television. I'd love for you to sit down with the cameras rolling and try to defend this. It's ridiculous. Go ahead, Molly.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Again, Stephen A. Smith Show, available